Good morning. Welcome to Rivers Edge Homestead. Today we're going to give you a bit of an update on how my gardening has been going and some of the things I've done to produce produce here at the homestead and some of the things I've done to make it into a food forest and some of the tricks I've done to mitigate the severe clay soil that I'm trying to grow in. Now, one of the options I used was raised garden beds. And as you can see, I've had good success with them in terms of beans, brassicas, cabbages, which is part of the Brassicas. Everything seems to be growing well in these ones. We have harvested bok choy, we've harvested kale, we've harvested lettuce. So as you can see, raised gardening is definitely an option. Okay, so I have a few raised gardens here. Unfortunately, one didn't produce well because after we planted, my husky decided that she wanted to dig in it. So that created a bit of a problem on destroying the seeds. Okay, but again, the raised gardens have done well. So that is an option in terms of how to deal with clay soil is just go right to the raised gardens. Now, the other thing I do here is I've got a grape vines that I've been working on for the last 2 years, and they seem to be doing pretty good, but these are direct planted into the clay. Now, this plant does well. This one definitely showing some lack of rain and extreme heat damage, and I've got some little guys here that I've planted to try to get to grow, and they're all either direct planted or surface planted. What I mean by surface planted is I didn't dig into the ground, I built the ground up around them. So we'll see how well they do this year, but definitely an option when dealing with clay. They are doing rather well over there. Those are older plants, they're now 2 years old. These ones here are newer. They went in this year, so we'll see how well they grow. Okay, so that's one of the things we've done to mitigate the clay soil. Now, if you do direct plant, like I've done on the originals, I treat the soil with dolomite. Because you're in a pine area, you tend to get a lot of, a bad pH. So if you treat with dolomite, you can get the pH to neutralize and your plants flourish a little bit better. So there's two options I've used, had good success or limited success in growing in heavy clay. Now this part here is my overgrown garden. Unfortunately, if you're like me, you don't have a lot of time to weed. So this air garden is mostly potatoes and a few cabbages at the end. Now how we did this garden was we created V trenches. Okay, I have what's called a middle plow, and that plow I ran across, put the potatoes in, and I filled with topsoil. Now as you can see, everything seems to be growing well. The potatoes are growing well. We have some peas that I've got to fence up. But other than that, that is another option, is to amend the soil. So in this case, I use what's called a middle plow, plowed rows with the plow and my tractor. And instead of filling the soil back into the row, I put new topsoil in the rows. So that is another option that does work well. This is one of my pear trees. It is direct planted into the heavy clay soil. I excavated out or dug out about a 3 foot ring, about a foot down, put the tree in, treat it with dolomite, give it some fertilizer, and this pear tree does seem to thrive in the clay type of soil. Elderberry bushes went in this year. Again, these ones are top planted, so I didn't even bother to dig into the clay. Just planted the elderberry bush and backfilled around it with topsoil, and they went in this year. So we'll see how well they perform, if they continue to take, and if they will grow. So far, so good. They are prospering. They are growing. They have a bit of rust mildew on them, so I've treated them with antifungus. So we'll see how well that works. Horseradish. This was here when I bought the place. It's direct planted into clay. It does thrive in clay. So nothing to do to this. It just seems to want to grow all the time. And then I have a currant bush, again, direct planted into clay. It has sustained some dying on it, either from lack of water I'm not quite sure what caused this plant to die off, or the extreme heat, or maybe a bit of over fertilization. I'm not quite sure. But the plant itself seems to be, the other part seems to be growing okay. Again, I treated it with a fungicide, just in case it's a fungus that is causing this plant to die off. But that's a currant bush, another currant bush, doing rather well. Again, it's direct planted into the clay. I excavated out twice the diameter of the pot, put it in, treat with dolomite, fertilize, and it seems to be thriving. These plants are about 3 years old. Haskap bush, again, direct planted, again, treated with dolomite, and it's 2 years old, this bush, and it seems to be taking, it seems to be going, it seems to be growing. So we'll see how well that goes. I did lose its partner. For some reason, it just died off on me. So right now, this one here is 2 to 3 years old. It did produce a few Haskaps this year, but away it goes. Plum tree. Okay, we have a little plum tree here. Again, direct planted. I have put topsoil around the base. I treat it with dolomite and diatomaceous earth to keep the bugs off it. But again, this tree is about 3 years old. It's showing new growth. It seems to be prospering, and we'll see how well it goes this year. Another Haskap bush. In this case, I put it into a raised bed. I want to see if it grows better, grows worse. If you see the white on it, it's diatomaceous earth for the bugs. But again, it has taken. It has some new growth on it, so we'll see next spring if it had survived the winter. Another plum tree. This one's not as thick as the other one. It's a bit more shaded. I've got to take down the tree that's shading it, but it's 3 years old and it has been growing, and it shows new growth every year. So we'll see how well it does, and it should produce fruit another couple more years. Another currant bush that we have planted in a raised bed, new this year. It is definitely showing good growth, so we'll see if it survives the winter. And we have another pear tree that we've done, again, direct buried into the ground with some topsoil around the base. But basically, it was planted in clay. It's 3 years old, and it is growing quite well. So pear trees seem to do okay in clay with a bit of dolomite, a bit of a fertilizer, spray them for bugs, spray them for fungicide, and they seem to keep growing. Another currant bush. This one seems to be attacked by a blight, so I've sprayed with a fungicide. Again, it's top planted in a raised bed. We'll see if she survives the winter. We'll know next spring. Another Haskap we've put in. This one is just merely surface planted. Ran out of rings, so what I did is I just set it on the ground and I filled the soil around the base of the tree, of the shrub, and we'll see how well they grow. So lots of things we've tried this year in the homestead. A few things we've got success, other things we don't have success, but we'll keep you updated as we go along on how to deal with zone 2B and heavy clay soil.